somebody has been successful in something, then I'm going to take that road, man. I'm going to start with that. If somebody tells me if you go around that corner, you're gonna get hit by a train, I'm not gonna go and look and see. I'm not gonna do it. You know, so learning from others and building relationships is so critical.
Welcome to another edition of Men on the Rise podcast. And today we have a special guest. And my guy right here telling you he's going to really bring something great to us today. So without any further, I want to introduce a good friend. We met in a short period of time, but already we have connected. And Mr. Carl Sharperson, we's in the building. If you don't mind, take a moment and introduce yourself to the people.
Yes, sir. My name is Carl Henrik Sharperson Jr., born in Washington, D.C., was called Chocolate City. Moved to Spotsylvania, Virginia when I was 14 years old. Went from an environment where everybody looked like me to an environment where nobody looked like me. I integrated the school during that time period, played sports, football, baseball. Wanted to go to college. Parents didn't have a whole lot of money. A recruiter came and talked to me about going to the Naval Academy, and I didn't know what the Naval Academy was. And it was only 90 miles up the road, primarily because there weren't a whole lot of people that looked like me going to the Naval Academy. I applied, did not get in because I was not academically competitive. The Naval Academy offered to send me to a preparatory school in Harlingen, Texas called Marine Military Academy. I learned to study for the first time there, reapplied, got accepted to the Naval Academy, played football, graduated, entered the Marine Corps, was a pilot in the Marine Corps, went to flight school, did two 6 month deployments to the Mediterranean and one 3 month deployment to the Caribbean. Got out of the Marine Corps after 5.5 years, worked for Procter& and Gamble in Albany, Georgia for 5.5 years, then transferred to Cincinnati, Ohio, worked for Procter& and Gamble there at their headquarters. Then I went to work for Frito-Lay in Indianapolis, Indiana, making chips, Santitas, Tostitos, Doritos. Started up several lines there, and after 3.5 years there, I went to work for Colgate Palmolive in Topeka, Kansas. Constantly moving west. Parents were living in Virginia. My wife's from Florida. Wanted to live somewhere between those two states. Took a job as the vice president of manufacturing for Dunlap Slosger. We make golf balls and golf clubs. After about a year, my boss and I agreed to disagree. Then I decided to start up my own business, doing speaking, business consulting, executive coaching. Uh, and I basically help individuals and organizations gain clarity in what they want to do and then help them put together strategies because you can't work on everything at the same time. Develop some key strategies and then help them put together a roadmap to get the results that they want to get. I've been married for 38 years, son and a daughter, elder in my church. It's a little bit about me.
Oh man, that's good. That's good. We're gonna back up a little bit because you were raised up in that time of segregation and a lot of those things during the '60s and stuff like that. So a lot of those, even myself included, wasn't privileged to some of those things. And I said, but I do want to touch on that because that did develop some of the things that we've known and have talked about. So even in your upcoming in the DC area, you say you were in areas where, hey, you grew up around at one point in time with people who looked like you and you was accustomed to that. Then that transition was, hey, I moved to an area where I was the only one in my kind there, my culture. So what was that like growing up in that time? And give us a little bit of take of what that experience was for you.
It was a growthful experience to say the least. So I go from an environment, and it's almost like overnight, to an environment where people didn't want me there. They didn't look like me. So it was a lot of things at odds there.
Mhm.
But what I learned over time was once we got to know each other and people got to know me, then they became my friend, right? So it taught me that everybody wants the same thing. They want to be loved, they want to be respected, and they want to be successful. I don't care what your color is, what your nationality is, what your sex is, what your race is. Everybody wants the same thing. But I was in an environment that I did not or could not leave, didn't feel that I could leave. So I had to figure out how to adapt. And that's what I learned. Whereas if I had an opportunity to leave, I probably would have left. But those lessons
Mm.
served me well as I went forward to deal with other people because I understood what the secret sauce was.
That's good, man. You said something that was impactful. Everybody wants to win. And so when you know how to adapt into that environment, you position yourself to win also. And so I can imagine, especially as a child, having to try to figure this out with a young in your young space, but realizing, hey, once I, connect with people, we can definitely find some things we do agree on. So many times we'll find ourselves if someone pushed me some way, hey, I'm not gonna let them just take advantage. And I learned something from Creflo Dollar. He said, you can't take advantage if I give the advantage. And so many times, we want to push against the pricks of what life sometimes give you. But if you embrace the things that seem to be um negative at the time, but say, hey, it's not all bad. Let me find the good, the common good of how I can use this thing to work for me. So the education that you was getting, environment that you were in was a difference. And so through that, you end up, like you say, you build friendships, you got some relationships that later on foster and help you to excel, right? And so with that, how did you, I guess, earlier years transition you to want to go into the military? How did that kind of start moving you in that direction?
Well, I back up a little bit as far as my transition into that environment. So I played sports, so that was an opportunity to win as a team, and my coach was pretty no nonsense, so that helped a lot. And then I wanted to go to college. Parents didn't have a whole lot of money, so I was at my senior year in high school. The class is over, or the football season is over. Me and two other guys get called to the office. We don't know why we're getting called to the office. In walks a guy, 6'2", blue suit, white shirt, blue tie, white cover. He says, "I'm from the Naval Academy, and I want to recruit you to play football." Again, I didn't know what the Naval Academy was, and it was only 90 miles up the road. The other two guys walked out because this was in 1970. I graduated from high school in 1971. Vietnam War was still going on. And they said, "We're not coming home in body bags going to Vietnam." I stayed and listened because my dad always told me never turn down an opportunity that you haven't been offered. So I listened, went home and talked it over with my dad, who's a World War II Marine. He says, "Carl, it's a pretty good opportunity, good school, no money out of your pocket." So I said, "Okay, I'm going for it." So I applied, but I did not get in because I was not academically competitive. So that was really I'd never planned on going into the military. That opportunity presented itself and I took advantage of it.
Mm. Awesome, awesome. So sports you played. So football was the position, the game you chose to play. Now, now soon you had to be some good in order to, scouts will be looking for you. So, how was your in that space of playing sports? How was that for you?
Well, let's go back to high school first. So
Uh-huh.
I go out for football for the first time in the ninth grade. Never played tackle football before. Coach Sparks gives a talk I'll never forget. He said, "You got your pads today. If you don't want to play, turn them in. No harm, no foul. But if you come back tomorrow, I need you to stay till the end of the season because quitters never win and winners never quit." He said, "If you quit my football
Mhm,
team, you might quit school, and get married. You might quit your spouse. And then if you
mhm,
have kids, you might quit your kids because once you quit the first time, it's easy to quit the next time." Fast forward my senior year, I obviously didn't quit. I was the most valuable player of my high school that year. Okay. I entered the Naval
mhm.
Academy. I did not start at the Naval Academy when I was on the team as a wide receiver.
Sounds good. That sounds good. And so, once you start going into the military, what were some of the things that you guess you started find yourself connecting and finding ranks and stuff like that? How did that transition, and how did you start flourishing within the military?
Well, I'll tell you the lessons that I learned in high school served me well because when I entered the Naval Academy, out of 36 midshipmen in my company, I was the only black. I was one of
Mm,
36 in my company. Now, we entered, it was about 1,300 people, 36 companies. But in my company, I was the only one, right? So again, I'm in that environment again, but I know how to deal with that because of the experiences that I had before. I had several other classmates that did not have that experience. They had a pretty tough time trying to figure out because people say a bunch of stupid stuff, and I understood that people say a bunch of stupid stuff, and you're not going to get me off my game by saying a bunch of stupid stuff. But if you don't understand that, you can spend a lot of mental energy and stuff you don't need to pay attention to. Right. So I go in and we learned about each other. I learned about the brotherhood of the military. And one of the things we had there was a saying of getting the gouge. Getting the gouge means getting the information that you need from others so you don't have to start from ground zero. So I take that with me so that when I go do something or want to do something, I say, okay, who's doing it at a high level that can tell me how to do it? So their ceiling can be my floor. I can take what they know, and then I can add upon that. So that was something that I learned there, and that has worked well in the military as well as outside of the military. And it's not a whole lot about what you know; it's about who knows you, what's your reputation, and how does that speak for you.
Yes, yes. Well, that's good. I definitely love the fact that when you build those relationships, you foster them and find out those commonalities where you can show. I heard in the book, I think it was Stephen Covey, which talks about those win-win relationships, and those are some of the key things that I believe relationships where it's you're helping someone, but also it's what's the win for both parties. It's not just win lose, but you have a mutual relationship with everybody giving their part to help each other to forge and move forward. And so knowing sometimes you may have to find somebody, be working with someone at one point in time, y'all have some differences with something that you can help that person to realize, hey, I'm here to help you. And in return, we can help each other. And so that was key. Now, how did that go far as with you in the military? How did you excel and move through the ranks? And what some of the things that you accomplished while there?
Yep. So while I was in the military, I went to flight school. And in flight school, the first day of ground school, they let you know that the attrition rate was 66%, which means only one out of three of those entering that would graduate. But because I had a mindset of never quitting, that I'm thinking, I'm looking to the left, I'm looking to the left. Y'all might be out of here, but I'm not going to be here because I'm not going to quit, because quitters never win and winners never quit. So I went in with that mindset, and again, I learned from other people that I knew that were going ahead of me to tell me what I needed to study, how I needed to study it, and so all that learning and things like that, I learned, and I went through without getting what's called a down. A down is when you have to do a refly. All right. So I went through the program without ever having a down. And then I graduated after about a year and a half of flight school. Yep. And those
Nice.
lessons were carried on.
hmm So while you was there and you went through flight school, what were some of the roles and your positions you were while after you accomplished that?
So after flight school, then I went to a squadron in North Carolina, Marine Squadron, Marine Helicopter Squadron, and I learned to fly a helicopter, a certain type of helicopter. And then I also had another job as a logistics officer. So I flew, and then I also had another job, and then I had another job. So basically, what we did was we prepared for a deployment. Took us a year to prepare for a 6-month deployment, and then we went out to the Mediterranean. We went to Spain, Italy, Africa, Israel, France, Portugal, all the different cities in the Mediterranean, and we basically we simulated wartime situations where we would go on a beach somewhere in Spain, say, and offload, and then we fly there and fly back, do that operation for a week or so. Then we get back up and go someplace else and do that again. So that's pretty much what that was. So when I was in, it was during the Cold War. So we were just preparing for combat if and when it happened. So that's kind of what I did. And I did that for 5.5 years. So within 3.5 years when I got there, I did 2 6-month deployments and one 3-month Mediterranean deployment. And then I got out. And I was a captain in the Marine Corps when I decided to leave.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's good, man. Like I say, being able to, like I say, reminds me of the 5 P's: proper planning prevents poor performance. And so, through all those times of preparation, making sure that you were prepared and ready for wartime or incidents to come about, definitely. Also, I imagine that foster into even where you are now into some other lanes. So let's just hear a little bit more of you having all these, and also get into the rank of captain, man, I want to congratulate and appreciate your years of service as well. And just knowing that, you during the time where people like yourself, most black men wasn't raised into those ranks and had a lot of things you had to overcome, to know that you excelled there, but also just even how some of those things even land even where you are now. So I'm saying all that to usher in how does that preparation even prepare you even in some of the things you're doing now. Tell me a little bit more how everything aligns into where you are sharing and even building and you working with other leaders even in the space you're in.
Yeah, so I look at my life and I say, okay, I've been an athlete, Division I athlete, served in the military, worked in 3 Fortune 500 companies, elder in my church, father, husband. So there's certain principles, leadership principles, and life principles that I learned in all those environments. So there's some basic principles that apply in all of them, no matter where you are. I talk about quitters never win and winners never quit. Some of my best accomplishments have been through challenges. And if I gave up and was not willing to go through that, then that never would have happened. Right? So that's one key thing that applies in everything. Another one is you always take care of your people. If you take care of your people will take care of you. Military, corporate America, church, family, it doesn't make any difference. If you don't take care of your people won't take care of you. In the Marine Corps, there's a tradition where when you eat, the higher the rank, the later you eat. You always let your people eat first. That's symbolic of if you go to war, you're giving them the bullets so they can protect you. And if you protect them, they will protect you. If you don't, you won't. Same thing in the civilian world. If you don't take care of your people, then you will have people in your organization that will not do what you want them to do, and they can basically sabotage you. You know, no matter what your rank is. So, but if you take care of them, take an interest in them, understand their families, determine what they want in life, at work as well as others, you got a friend for life, right? So always take care of your people. You always tell the truth. In the military, if you lie, people can die. In the civilian world, if you lie, people can die also. It might be a different kind of death, but they can die. And it's always important to tell the truth because your reputation precedes you, especially now with social media. I mean, they can just Google you and find out what's going on. There's a lot of times you can have some bad stuff on there that's not right, but your reputation precedes you. And people always ask, who do you know? Who knows you? If they know somebody's in the organization you're coming from, say, you know what, that Carl Sharperson, tell me about it. And that's very, very important to always tell the truth, be a person of your word with high integrity. Uh, Another valuable lesson is it's all about relationships. It's all about relationships, building strong relationships. The quicker you can build relationships, the more successful you're going to be. Because I've worked in all those different arenas, normally it doesn't take me long to develop quick rapport with somebody through athletics, military, corporate America, church, some combination of experiences. And then once you develop that, then you can very quickly learn from them, get information from them, and you can get information. I can call somebody up today that I have a relationship with. That wouldn't happen before. I'll give you a quick example. So I was the commencement speaker at my alma mater prep school that I went to in Texas. That was in 1921. I mean, no, not 2021. 2021. Okay. Through that, I met some people that had kids there. This one lady that I met and her son, I met them 5 years ago at that event, right? We still keep in touch. She called me and told me that her son wanted to go to West Point and wanted to be a lawyer. I said, So I called a guy that I know who's a Citadel graduate and is an attorney, and I connected them. They had a great conversation. But that information, that firsthand information, allows that person to keep from doing stuff that they don't need to do. If somebody has been successful in something, then I'm going to take that road, man. I'm going to start with that. If somebody tells me if you go around that corner, you're going to get hit by a train, I'm not going to go and look and see. I'm not going to do it. You know, so learning from others and building relationships is so critical. And then the most important one, I think, is prioritization. What's important at the time? For me, the priority has always been faith, family, and friends. At the Naval Academy, I had a lot of opportunities to get more information and more stuff than I could get done. Just couldn't get it all done. So it forced me to prioritize what was important. So you understand what's important, you put together a plan, you execute the plan, and you move forward. At least you do something. There's this thing called analysis paralysis or paralysis analysis. Sometimes people will get information and they won't do anything because it do something, see what happens, and then do something else. So take action is so important. One of the most important things to do to get started is to get out of the bed and have your feet hit the floor. So those are some
That's
lessons
good.
that I learned in all those different environments.
Well, that's good, man. Like I say, these different pieces these different tools and different strategies that you learn, you're able to apply even now to different areas. Like what you just said, some of the same things I apply even to what I do, and all of us do. So the main thing, in order to be successful, you have to take action. You can't wait until you figure it all out. A lot of times, sometimes you just got to get going, and in the process of getting going, you will get the next piece to the puzzle, but you have to move. You have to be okay with making mistakes sometimes, because in the process of making those mistakes, there you have opportunities to learn. But you can't build anything without movement. And so what you're
Exactly.
saying is so important for us to have a life of not just success, but have a life of significance and key leader or the person that we call want to be. And so even what you were saying, even from the military to the workspace, and even now in the business sector where you are now, use some of those same things like preparation, plan, do, review. That's something I learned through one of my mentors. He was saying, hey, make the plan, write it down, but then you go out there and execute, but then you review it. You review how that went, make some adjustments, and then continue moving forward with that same strategy. And so, even now, you've written a book, you're an author, you also speak, you also in different spaces and speaking on this message. And so, what's some of the things of who you speak to that you really want to convey and to leave them with? What's some of that look like?
Well, one of the things that I think is pretty powerful is you got to be willing to ask for help, right? And you don't want to be the smartest person in the room, because if you're the smartest person in the room, then you're not learning anything. So I'll give you this example of joining up with people and getting to know people, stuff like that. So I went to a mentoring event when I was at Procter and Gamble. I was a second level manager, and the president of the company at the time was the one to put together this networking event for mentoring young people. So I was there with him and several other people. So I wanted to have some time with him, right? I'm thinking, okay, what can I say to not Dr. Pepper, but Mr. Peppers, Mr. John Pepper, to have a conversation with him? I said, oh, I got it. So I went up to him and I said, Mr. Peppers, we've never spoken before, but we have a lot in common. He says, really? What is that? I said, you like to mentor young people, and I like to mentor young people. I'd love to have a conversation with you to get your thoughts on that. He said, oh, man, that sounds good. I said, Mr. Peppers, how do I make that happen? He said, contact my administrative assistant and tell her to set up some time. So that's what I did. 2 weeks later, I'm in the president of Procter& and Gamble's office having a 30-minute conversation about mentoring with him and how to be successful in the company. That never would have happened. I've done that to a lot of people, and I've never been turned down. Never. Everybody wants to tell you about how they can help you, but you got to ask.
Man, that's good. And I think one of the keys, what you just said, was being willing to network and build relationships. Even how we got a chance to meet a week or so ago, was through, finding commonalities and then also finding ways of how we can support and within that to be on the same vein to be able to help one another to move forward. And so when, like what you just said, the key was it was a common interest, but also being able to show this person this is a win, not just for me, but how can I help be a win for you? And we do that more and not always find out, hey, what's the win for myself? But show a person, hey, if I can help you, if I can help serve you, what can I do to be able to help you move forward as well? And so that is so important in relationships building. And so there's some of the things like even what you just said, That's definitely something, being intentional on finding ways. And even when you walk into a room, I don't care if you feel like, hey, I'm an introvert or whatever. Hey, it's a way to still connect with people. And I use a thing called FAM. I've learned that was, common conversations to break the ice when you're in a room with someone. But being intentional, whenever I step into a room, I want to connect with someone. I want to make sure that I can compliment them. I want to share with them if I see something that did well. Let me speak on that. And also, there's some things that, hey, how can I be able to help serve you? Not so much what can I get from you, but let me see if I can be of a service or be of a help and speak something to your life. And by doing that, you winning a person in because they say, hey, that person found an interest in who I am. And right now, we're reading a book in my men's group. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? And you had a chance to be on the call last week with us, and we talked about some different things within that book. One was how to avoid arguing, right? And that's so important because we all have things where we disagree, but hey, how can we find things that we do agree, and let's talk on that. And so we find a common ground. Now we can build something. Then later on, we may can talk with the things we have to speak on that we disagree. But let's start with something that's common first, and let's build our relationships there. But what I want to also just ask you, let's speak a little bit more about how people can connect with you, how they can find out what you have going on. So if anyone wants to reach out to you, how could that be so?
Yes, I'm pretty easy to find. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, and I have a website. The website is www.carlsharpersonjr.com. That's my website. And I've got two books. One's called Sharp Leadership, Overcome Adversity to Lead with Authenticity. The second one is called Sharp Leadership, Parenting Principles for Rearing Young People. And it's a book about my take on how to rear healthy, happy, productive young people. It's for coaches, it's for parents, it's for anybody that's dealing with young people. It talks about social media, talks about bullying, talks about how do you make sure that when that child is 18 years old, they have the skills that they need to be healthy, happy, and productive young people. No matter, even if they go to a quote unquote Christian college, there are wolves in sheep's clothing. So when they become 18 and they leave your home, they need to know how to develop healthy relationships. They need to know how to navigate this world. They need to have a good work ethic. They need to be able to study. They need to be critical thinkers. They need to be able to communicate. They need to be able to eat, sleep, and exercise so that they're healthy. They need to have all those skills by the time they leave your house. So if that's the goal and you know that, then you start preparing that child when they come out the womb. You prepare them such that you know that at 18, I'm not going to be there. So what do they need? And if you have that mindset, then you probably won't be a helicopter parent
That's good.
and a hindrance and a barrier. So those are two books that I read. They're both on Amazon. My first book's on audio and written form. The second book is only in written form. And they're set up such that after each chapter, it asks you a question. What did you learn? What are you going to do differently from what I said? So I had a 17-year Marine Corps veteran who got out of the Marine Corps with post-traumatic stress disorder, became a substance abuser. Then he became homeless. Now he runs a shelter for homeless veterans. And he said my book was the first book that he ever read from cover to cover in his life. I've had entrepreneurs read it, educators, 99-year-old great grandmamas, 10-year-old educators, military people, all of the above. And it's a pretty powerful read. And the second book is a great book for, again, helping rearing healthy, happy, productive young people. But if you just Google my name or Sharp Leadership, I'll pop up.
Man, that is amazing, man. Well, I want to appreciate and I thank you for giving us your time to be able to share with the people your journey, but also how they can connect with you, how they can be able to get some tools that you're in the trenches wanting to share with others through your experiences to help them to be successful and be productive in their life. So if you can, what's something that's near and dear to your heart, something that you always speak to yourself during the days to make sure that you stay in this fight and to stay on this journey to help you to be successful? What's something that you can give people as an inspiration? What would that be?
Well, 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And during that battle with the cancer, I met a lady in my neighborhood who was a breast cancer survivor. And she told me about what she called her chemotherapy walk. So while she was going through chemotherapy, she used to walk. So I started doing that when I was going through my chemotherapy. And while I was walking, I would say one of three verses to get the negative stuff in my head out of my head and replace it with positive. It would be either the 23rd Psalm, the prayer of Jabez, or the Lord's Prayer. And I would say those as I was walking until the negative stuff in my head was replaced by the positive. So you have to speak things into existence, even if it doesn't look like it's going to work. My wife was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer about 4 years ago. When she got the news, she said, "Whose report will I believe? I will believe the report of the Lord. I will live and not die." She had 16 rounds of chemo, double mastectomy, reconstructive surgery, but she's cancer free. And that was her mindset doing that. So you want to speak things as you want them to be. One of the things that I would do, again, if I was raising my children, is I would create a vision statement for them that they would memorize and recite to help encourage them when they get in situations that are challenging, you know. And that's so very, very good because, life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Man, I was gonna end on that, but you gave me something. I gotta ask another question before we get out of here. Like I said, you told me that you went through this cancer, and I'd never been through that, but I know it was some dark days. Know some moments where, like, man, sometimes we question God, why me, or whatever. What was through that dark moment? You press through a little bit harder to press through to get to that light. If you don't mind sharing the experience to kind of let people know, just because some of us out there, I just got a call late last night about a guy who got a major piece that's going to affect him, his life, him and his family. But what's something that even through the darkest of dark like that you just had to hold on to, even when didn't look like it?
Well, I'll give an experience with Alcohol Anonymous. Okay, so Alcohol Anonymous, they have I think it's 12 steps or 12 stages, right?
Mhm.
The very last step in Alcohol Anonymous is to go help somebody else. So when you think you have it bad, I use this story. When I thought I had it bad, when I had no shoes, until I saw the man with no feet. So when you get down and you can find somebody else that you can help that's worse off than you, that gives you some perspective.
Mhm.
That gives you some perspective.
That's good. That's good. I appreciate that because that it speaks volume. That what you want for yourself, find that way to give it to someone else. Plant that seed. Like I say, seed time and harvest. Whatever you want to reap, you have to sow that. If you want love, you sow love into someone else. If you want finances, you sow money into someone else. And make sure you sow it into fertile soil. Mm. And I know we can go on there. That can preach, but we're gonna stop right there, my guy. But man, Mr. Carl, I appreciate you for taking time to come onto the platform to be able to share your journey, your story, to impact someone else's life. Because I know the words that you spoke is sincerely from your heart through your journey. And so we thank you again. We appreciate. We're going to be connecting with you more, and we definitely want to employ others to please look him up. We're gonna be making sure we drop the information here in the chat, but definitely check out his books, check out his material. But also, if you're looking for a great speaker, no, none better. Please do look him up, and he's going to be glad to come in to be able to share with your people some ways, some strategies to help them to be successful. And so, Mr. Carl, thank you again. We appreciate everybody taking time to be able to check out this podcast. Do continue to check us out as we move forward and into the next time. Be great.